The opinions expressed in this program are not necessarily those of the Dad Talks Project. Please, go sue somebody else.
America, happy 4th of July. You know, on this Independence Day, we tend to look back about 240 years and say, we did some pretty cool stuff as a country. We've overcome incredible odds, and look where we are today. I want to ask you today to look back a lot shorter, 10, 20 years, and see just how far we've come, just how far our mindsets have changed in that short amount of time, that short sliver of American history. Today, I want to introduce you to two dads who have really forged their own path against incredible odds and have earned the right to be called dad. So with that, sit back and enjoy this episode of the Dad Talks Project, and welcome. Our first dad is cut from such a beautiful, wonderful, unique cloth. I don't know how I could put her introduction any better than to just say, Stacey. Enjoy.
I am not a dad. I have no illusions about my manliness, and just because I married a woman does not mean that I consider myself the father to her children. I guess if you were looking at us from an outsider's perspective, you might consider me the more masculine of the two, but that is only because my wife is stunningly gorgeous by any beauty standard, and I am, well, am this. But for the record, let it be known that I consider myself no father. So when I was asked to do this dad talk, it struck a chord deep in my own insecurities in parenting, which is that if I am not a man, and I have no interest in being a man, how is it possible for me to be a good male role model for my sons? How can I show them heroism, bravery, provision, responsibility, humility as men should have? Well, in thinking about this, I realized my own innate sexism, which is that these qualities, heroism, bravery, strength, assertiveness, power, these aren't male characteristics. They are admirable ones. And they do not come pre-assigned with body parts. They must be earned. So, for the sake of argument, though, let's just say that gender is a socially constructed idea, which most of the experts, I believe, say. I am responsible, shamelessly, constantly, of trying to feminize my male children. And what I mean by this is every single day I ask them, put the toilet seat down, stop making fart jokes, stop finding ways and laughing at the word booby. And I know it is maybe universally funny, but nonetheless, boys take that word to an entirely different level. So, if gender is socially constructed and boys will in fact be boys, that means that no matter what their lesbian moms do to mess them up, they are going to grow up to be men. And all we can hope for is that we treat them with responsibility, respect, patience, and ask them to be those kinds of people as they grow up. We were asked at a party once whether or not the boys called me daddy. And Kat and I looked at each other and said, is that what people think? But the answer is yes. Sometimes they do call me daddy if they have spent a long weekend with their father, just as I'm sure they call him mom some of the times for the first 24 hours that they're with him. They do have a father, but he is a colonel in the Air Force, and right now he's on the other side of the country. So we do try to bring positive male influences into their lives in his absence, because we realize how important it is. And bringing those male influences in, I've asked a lot of my friends, how do I prepare for those father-son conversations that I know are really important for us to have with the boys? And I think it was my wife who gave me the best piece of advice in that area, which is that I don't think any father in history has ever sat down with their son and explained to him what it feels like to have a penis. So stitching that together with the advice from our other friends, we found that the best we can do is offer them the advice that shows them how to get girls to want to get to that point, how to be patient, how to be kind, how to be attentive. And perhaps we have the best knowledge in that area anyway. But along those lines, the men that we include in our lives, in reflection, I've realized, are the kinds of men that are generally on the fringes of what is acceptable male behavior anyway. And what I mean by that is they have long hair, or they're stay-at-home dads, or they spin fire, and they love kitties, and they have their own treehouse at the Renaissance Festival, and they wax poetic and faux British accents, and they are rock climbers. All we can hope for is that the fervent independence the two of us foster and believe in, and that is the quintessential characteristic we look for in our friends, eventually rubs off on our children. And we do that by making sure that the culture in our house is driven by their interest. And whether that interest manifests itself in black ops or baking, we are going to make sure that it is supported. So let's talk a little bit about some of their interests. I think that one of the most amazing moments of bravery I've ever seen in my children was when Henry went through his love of My Little Pony, bronies, they call them bros who love My Little Pony. And we stood for about half an hour in the line at Toys R Us or in the aisle at Toys R Us while he selected which pony he wanted to take home under the judgmental eyes of all of the other parents and plenty of the children in that store. I found it amazing. Now he loves Minecraft, video games, and Pokemon, but those ponies are still on his bed at home. Ethan, on the other hand, is obsessed with sports, and that is an interest that did not come out of either Kat or myself. We have no interest necessarily, and are not able to hold really long conversations with Ethan about statistics and new players. And Ethan questions every single Washingtonian native about how the Redskins have such a terrible record and how they could like the Redskins versus the Ravens. And well, we have no idea, but we can certainly take him to practice every day and show up at his games on Saturdays. I know that I'm supposed to offer some advice, and I think the best advice that I can give is in their own words. When Ethan said, "Purple is no longer a girl's color. There are no boys and girls colors anymore." Or Henry, when we watched Mulan together, and he said, that girl, she won the war, and no one thought she could do it just because she was a girl. They were wrong. My advice is Ethan's reaction when his teachers asked all of the boys in class to bring in a boy-themed book wrapped in blue paper for the holiday gift exchange, and all of the girls to bring in a girl-themed book in pink wrapping paper. And Ethan, of his own accord, without any help from us, selected a gender-neutral text, wrapped it in heart wrapping paper, and smothered it with Transformer stickers, and wrote for a boy or a girl. My advice is Henry, who is growing his hair out for locks of love and is constantly asked or told by strangers what a pretty little girl he is. And with infinite patience and kindness, he says, "Thank you, but I'm a boy." Still, despite all of this gender norming and breaking of stereotypes, I knew for sure that I was the mother of boys the day that I came home and they had gotten into the sidewalk chalk and they had written in larger-than-life letters big enough to be seen from a low-flying airplane the word "but" was spelled correctly. It was great. We're just waiting for the day that it's a giant penis.
America, when we think about dads, I think the one quality we want to believe they all possess is patience. Now, our next dad has that in spades. Jared Treiber is probably one of the most patient dads I've ever met in my life. He's also smart, funny, snarky, polite, kind, accomplished. He's a lot of things. And he's all these things to his kids and more, his adopted kids and more. So please enjoy my conversation with Jared. Tell me about your situation.
Well, that's kind of open-ended. My situation, well, I have two adopted children. I have Holden, who is going to be 4, and I have Logan. That's going to be 2. He is. He's going to be 2, and we sought out. We sought out to adopt them. It's just the situation was an emergency adoption situation for Holden. She was in the hospital and they needed someone to take her, and we just found out the day before, and then the next day pretty much we had to decide if we were jumping in, and we did, and it's been fun ever since. Before Holden, we were going to be adopting another child, and the birth mother backed out. So it was really just the way things were meant to be, I never realized that until it actually happened.
Yeah, that had to be kind of weird and disappointing.
Having a failed adoption is a whole bunch of things. You're so upset because you thought you were moving in one direction, then all of a sudden it's gone. Someone took it away from you, and it's like you're mourning the loss of a child, but at the same time you're besides being upset, you're angry. Like, how could someone do this to you? And you'd be the right parent. So, it's just really tough.
Was your interest in helping kids in distress, or had you always had an urge to be a father? Or?
Well, it would sound noble to say that I was looking to help a child in distress, but that was never the situation. Just wanted to have kids. I never thought that was an opportunity for me, but as I was getting older and investigating it more, I was looking and seeing that there was an opportunity. I wanted to be a father. And it was scary with the situations that we were presented with, where, there was medical issues and we don't know the history. And, there was just a lot of things that we were nervous about and worried, and the unknowns. Wow. And you think when you adopt that you can kind of pick and choose, like, oh, I want this child and this child's going to be perfect, and all these things, and it's just not the case. And it takes you a second to realize that if you have your own biological child, you don't know what could happen. You don't know what you'll be handed. And would I love them any less? No. But you have to get through that process. I was worried that if it's not my biological child, that I wouldn't love the child as much. Second I saw the kids, forget it. It was gone. I just instantly fell in love, and with this, I love you. And so expectations now, looking back, totally blew my mind, beyond my expectations, because it's just amazing, raising a child and just kind of figuring it all out as you go.
This is Malachi.
That is Malachi. My kids help me learn something almost every day. One of the biggest things is I'm a planner. I need to know exactly what's going on and when, and kids don't read that rule book. So kind of learning to let go and learning to kind of let them be helped me to kind of say, is this really that important? Is it the end of the world if I don't know what's happening next? I think that was huge for me. And also patience. I have 0 patience before kids.
You are the bad guy.
Yeah. And now you can't. That's just not Holden. I love you. I'm going to take the gun away though, okay?
Why?
Because you're not listening. Can you go over there? You're in front of everything. Can you go over there, please? Do you want me to put you in a timeout? 1, 2. Thank you. Patience. I guess that was an impromptu example.
Do you find any challenges because of the uniqueness of your family structure with adoption and stuff like that?
I don't think there's as much uniqueness now because they're young. I don't think they see any difference. Our biggest goal is, as they're growing up, to be open and honest with them, to talk to them about what adoption is, why they were adopted, telling them that families are all different. Some people have 2 fathers, some people have 2 mothers, some people just have 1 mother. There's just some people raised by their grandparents. Trying to explain that to them from the very beginning is really all we can do. I know that there's going to be situations, but fortunately right now, we're surrounded by so much support. That's almost surprising to me sometimes.
You said you were surprised. Were you expecting pushback, like a more societal pushback, or?
absolutely was concerned about pushback, because a lot of times people, and it might not be from a bad place, it just could be from not being informed. Like, we get questions like, where'd you get your daughter from? And it's just like, how do you answer that? And, people will ask me, even like older relatives will say, well, who's going to pick out her clothes because you're two dads? It's like, well, here's a shirt, here's a bottom, here it is. You kind of figure it out. I don't, who cooks? Well, we obviously have to feed ourselves, let alone our children. So, it's little things like that, which are no big deal. That to me is just normal questions of curiosity or not knowing. I would have expected more people to be more vocal or more obvious of their disdain or dislike for our situation. But I think I was more apprehensive of looking for it rather than, it actually happening. What's surprising is the advice that I'm taking from is more so my parents. Don't tell them that. But really, I see now how well my parents did. I think that they raised some pretty okay kids. So I use some of that advice. And then I see, I take examples from other people, like our best friends and godparents of our kids. Like your kids are really good. How did you do that? Just how to raise them. And even, my own family, my brothers and, their kids. I'm like, these are some good kids. All right, we're going to do similar things to what they did.
Do you sense that you're going to be a fairly permissive parent, or you feel like there's more of a leash involved kind of a thing?
I would say that I'm probably more strict, but because I know that, I want to kind of, loosen up a little bit. My biggest fear is that under my care, something happens to them. And that's every parent's fear, I would assume. So right now, I'm pretty strict. I want to make sure they respect their elders. Thank you, please, things like that just, manners, that's right now. Clean up your room, put away your toys, which sounds kind of harsh, but I know that it's going to hopefully make them a better person so that when they are a little bit older, as maybe even just teenagers, I could say, all right, I got to let them do their own thing, make their own mistakes. That's the goal. Who knows? We're so lucky to have this opportunity. People say, oh, your kids are so lucky because you adopted them. And it's like, it's not the way it works. We're lucky, and they have to know that. My kids have to know that, and hopefully one day they will.
Summertime done, come and gone, my oh my, 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 my.